rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Shepard Smith here.
Thank you. And again, in the chat, just a few words of what resonates with you as we see Amanda Gorman. Good morning and welcome to the Gifted Network of African American Black students, families, and friends. My name is Dr. Michelle Rainey Woods, Interim Administrator of Access, Equity, and Acceleration. I remembered not too long ago sitting at Palms Middle School parent meeting, a meeting just like this one, worried because my gifted daughter said that school was boring. She didn't like school, and I didn't understand. She received great grades, got along with her friends. Every spring and summer break, I was signing her to all kinds of programs. Sometimes, and let me be honest, oftentimes, telling me that I always made her do things she didn't want to do. Actually, she told me that last week, and she is now a freshman in college. But I wanted her to have access to programs that sparked her interests. I wanted her to be excited about the world of possibilities. I wanted to have the resources based on need, desire, and curiosity. A world that allowed her to reach her highest heights without barriers. Many of you I do not know, but I do know what we have in common. We want to tap into that brilliance of our children and let them soar. So today we want you to know that we were very deliberate with our theme, a new way forward, learning and preparing for a world that doesn't exist yet. We heard you. We want to know how we best can prepare them for the future. How can we engage your children to be productive, lifelong learners? I read a November 2020 World Economic Forum report, WEF report. Some of the top 10 skills needed for the year 2025, 4 years from now, were innovation, analytical reasoning, and tolerance in a stressful situation, and the ability to be flexible. We definitely have seen in the last 11 months how important it is to be resilient and flexible in our personal and professional lives. The report also identified the top future skills, that employers are looking for in 2025: cultural competence, perseverance, interdisciplinary skills, tech aptitude, and emotional intelligence. So this is what we know. Our children are going to have what the late Kobe Bryant called the Mamba mentality. They have to go after everything with a goal of mastery. They have to have the mindset, and we have to communicate the mindset of perseverance. That means taking those rigorous classes and mastering them so they will be competitively eligible to attend a college and university or attain the career of their choice. They have to have the tech aptitude. The experts predict the biggest demand is data scientists, engineers, and software developers. So your child doesn't like technology, there will also be a growing need for tech-related positions in other sectors. These include educators, tech-savvy HR professionals, and experts in the legal side of new technologies. So this will include humanities, or social science-oriented people. The most important, before we can concentrate on the academic intellect, we must first deal with the heart. Students will need to know how to identify, to understand, and to manage their own emotions, as well as emotional states of others. So you see the keynote, Kenneth Shelton speaking on Generation Now, Contemporary Teaching and Learning, the parent workshops on financial literacy and social emotional health, and student workshops, website design, entrepreneurship, leadership leading to scholarship, empowerment and community advocacy, debate and dialogue, and technologies has been provided just for you and your children, because we are dedicated and committed to the brilliance of your gifted African American and Black child. And to show you how much the Los Angeles Unified School District Division of Instruction and UCLA are dedicated to your child and your children, we will have Superintendent Austin Buettner, Allison Yoshimoto Tauri, Chief of Academic Officer of Los Angeles Unified, Yolanda Copeland Morgan, UCLA Vice Provost of Enrollment Management, and Dr. Keith Abrams, Executive Director of Student Integration, who will welcome you and provide you their commitment to you and your child.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Austin Buettner, Superintendent of Los Angeles Unified, and I want to extend my warmest welcome to this discussion today. Talking about gifted students, how we nurture talents and help them reach the highest of heights, brings to memory a gifted gentleman who was in one of our high schools many, many moons ago, Hal Walker. Hal Walker, African-American from Los Angeles, who helped design the only interplanetary experiment that took place with Apollo 11 in July of 1969. As we think about today and all of you in the audience, there's probably the next Hal Walker. There's the next moonshot existing in our midst. One of the students today, my hope, is one of the future pilots who might take us all to Mars and beyond, or lead an interplanetary experiment of some sorts between those who are on Mars and those who are on Earth. The way we get there, it starts with great education and our commitment to make sure today we're providing you with that foundation in literacy, math, and critical thinking that can take you far. It starts with making sure each of the families who are participating today have the support they need to help their children in their journey. And it helps in forums like this to find out where resources, where help, where ideas and opportunities lie, because a gifted mind needs to be exercised. It needs to be stretched. It needs to be taken out, not just for a walk, but for a run sometimes. And it's forums like today that I hope each of you will come away with some new ideas, some new way of thinking, and a understanding that there's nothing stronger on our part than the commitment to make sure each of the students in the audience today reach their full potential, whether that's Mars or beyond. So good morning, welcome. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
And now we will have Allison Yoshimoto Tauri, our Chief Academic Officer, Division of Instruction.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for being with us today. You got to deal with these mute buttons these days. So I just wanted to say thanks so much. I'm glad the superintendent was here today. I think we're joined by also board member Dr. George McKenna. We're so pleased that you're all here with us. I just wanted to speak a little bit about, I don't know if you heard this term before, it's called a warm demander. I'm gonna say it again, a warm demander, right? So you're out there probably with your parents this morning listening, and a warm demander is somebody in your life who holds you to really high expectations and has really like a strong vision for you, right? So they're not always, you don't always feel like you want to do what they say because it's not always what you want to hear, but they care about you. So what does the warm demander sound like? Might sound like, get out of bed, do your homework, right? Might sound like, gotta go to that meeting on a Saturday. It might sound like, come on, we're gonna go visit a college. Whoever those warm demanders are in your life, they also love you. They help you to be a better person. They help you to find what it is you want to do in your life. So the next time somebody comes to you that tells you to do something that maybe you don't feel like doing just right then, I want you to think about those people are your warm demanders. They're going to help you be better. You can find that person in a teacher, a counselor, somebody who works at your school in the office. It could be the person who helps keep the school clean, right? You've got warm demanders all around you and all around your family. So find those folks, because in life, it's not really how smart we are. It's about how hard we work and how we apply our smarts to what it is we want to do in life and how to help other people. So I hope today, as you engage in the workshops, you have a better sense of where it is you want to go. We have an amazing keynote speaker here today, Kenneth Shelton. So learn, right? Push yourself, because nobody rises to low expectations. And if I could have that written somewhere, I would. No one rises to low expectations. So have a high expectation for yourself. Enjoy the day and surround yourself with warm demanders. Thank you so much, Dr. Rainey Woods.
Thank you so much. Those warm demanders have been throughout my life. So thank you so much for that. So now we will have Yolanda Copeland-Morgan, our UCLA Vice Provost, Enrollment Management. Thank you, Ms. Morgan, Copeland-Morgan.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, parents, guardians, scholars, and supporters. We are thrilled at UCLA to have a very strong partnership with the Los Angeles Unified School District and the Gifted program. And so on behalf of our chancellor, our faculty, and my entire staff in enrollment management, which also oversees undergraduate admission and financial aid, we want you to know, and I'm speaking specifically to students right now, that you are brilliant, you are capable of achieving more than you might think that you are, but that we are here to support you in this work. I want to encourage you to do your best to take advantage of every opportunity. At UCLA, we look forward to engaging you. Parents, we have CUB programs, so students as young as elementary school can visit. These are opportunities outside of the Gifted program, but you and your students can visit us at any time once it is safe. So we want you to know, as an anchor institution, UCLA feels that we have an obligation to make sure that the students in the Los Angeles area are prepared for school, and not only prepared, but that they are competitive applicants. And we are proud of our students from Los Angeles Unified School District who are current Bruins. They come to UCLA, they do well, they're thriving, and we're looking forward to having many more students, or as we call them, scholars from Los Angeles Unified School District attending UCLA. Go Bruins.
So thank you so much, Ms. Copeland-Morgan. And one thing I can definitely say about Ms. Copeland-Morgan is that she welcomes her students, and it feels like we're part of the family, that we're a family. So really appreciate all that you do for our students. Now we have Dr. Keith Abrams, who's the Executive Director of the Student Integration Services.
Hello, good morning. My name is Keith Abrams. I'm the Executive Director of Student Integration Services, and I oversee the magnet programs for LA Unified. I remember a few years back in the library at Audubon Middle School when we began this work. There were probably only 20 families. Our goal was to build the capacity and present a space for social networking for our African-American families. Another intention was to normalize conversations within our community about Black academic excellence. I am proud that our conversations, learning, dedications to supporting our gifted African-American students. We are in a good place, but the work is far from finished. And with Superintendent Buettner and Chief Academic Officer Towery's commitment, there's no doubt that we will increase. And thinking about a warm demander, my 6th grade teacher, Ms. Terry Dix, at 32nd Street Unified School District, was my warm demander. I came to 32nd Street far from the skill level as the other students there. But because I was identified gifted, I was in her class. And at that time, she taught me the difference between skills and intelligence. She proved to me that I was as smart as everybody else in that class, which, by the way, was predominantly white and Asian. There were only 3 students of color. And she told me that, yes, my skills were low, and it was her job to help pick those skills up. The best decision of my life was choosing to listen to her. And so I'm asking you all to choose to listen to your warm demander, because I have nothing but great intentions. And I wish you a blessed day.
Thank you so much. Now we will have reflections from one of our students in the Gifted Enrichment Academy, Olivia Carter. She's a current student at University High School, 9th grade, highly gifted student. And I've known this young lady since, I think, before she was born. So really like to hear from Olivia Carter, giving you information about the Academy, her reflections.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Olivia Carter. I'm currently a 9th grader at University High School Charter, and I was recently enrolled in the fall GNAASF program. And I'll be honest, I didn't actually know I was in it until about 2 weeks before it started, so thank you, Mom. But when she first told me about it, I must say I was really excited. On my first day, I met 2 incredible teachers who had incredible lessons for us every single week. It was a nice break from online school, and the great thing was that I felt a sense of community through it, even though I was still stuck on a screen. For the first time since online school started, I didn't really feel stuck either. I further enhanced my knowledge on bacteria and viruses as I chose to study mathematics with science. And I remember I had a final project that was quite amazing. I got to use this new technology on a program called Blender that allowed me to create my own bacteria. And it was so much fun. It was a nice break from regular slideshow projects that we get in my normal classes. So if you're still not convinced that this program is near perfect, that's a major reason. It's fun, and that's one of the most important things. Also, the second class I enrolled in was creative writing. Now, personally, I love to write, and my teacher took us through poetry, short story writing, animation, and many more. We did multiple quick writes during our class time and ended the semester with writing a narrative, and we shared a part of it with each other. Now, normally, I cannot stand these things called breakout rooms on Zoom, where the teacher puts you in a virtual room with a few other classmates and you have to interact. But I must say, for once, I actually enjoyed it. We got to share our stories, and every single time we met, we told each other about our weeks, struggles, and all. I even met someone I didn't even know went to my school. And then the best part about the entire program was that I was surrounded by people that looked like me. Since the 6th grade, I've always been the only African-American girl in my honors classes. Well, in 9th grade, I'm not really sure because high schoolers don't like to turn their cameras on. But for once, I was certain that the people in my classes knew what I faced on a daily basis. And that's the best part about this program. In a way, it gave me the sense of community I'm looking for when I applied to HBCUs like Spelman or Howard. And just in conclusion, the program is amazing. So I thank you, Ms. Woods, for creating something that was an engaging experience, and I cannot wait for the next one.
Thank you so much, Olivia, and I really appreciate you for that heartfelt reflection and honest reflection. So now we will have Ms. Towery, and she will introduce our board members.
I know you're out there listening, and there's a lot of folks here to talk to you today, and I think it's because we all care so much. I want to say that today we have board member, I'm going to try to go in order here, okay? We have our board member in Board District 1, Dr. McKenna. Thank you for being here today. You could wave. We have our board member from Board...
Can you see me? I don't know. I can't see myself. Right?
I think we can. We can see you. We have our board member from Board District 3, Mr. Scott Schmerlson. Thank you. Board member from Board District 4, Mr. Nick Melvoin. Hello, hello. Our board member from Board District 5, Ms. Jackie Goldberg. We see you.
Hello, hello.
Good morning. And our board member from Board District 7, Tanya Ortiz. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. So thank you so much for all being here today. We are super grateful. I assume you'd love to say a short hello to everybody, if you'd like, and then we'll go from there. Let's see, Dr. McKenna, would you like to say hello?
Sure, I would, but so I can't see myself, so I don't know if I'm on. I guess you can see me, right?
Yeah, we see you now.
Oh, here I am. Okay. Yeah, I scare myself sometimes. First, I want to thank everybody who coordinated this, not just this year, but previous conference, and it's the brainchild of several people, Michelle Woods being one of them, and Andre Spicer, and several other people who put this thing together year after year after year. So here we are in 2021. I'd like to express appreciation to Allison, Tariq, Keith Abrams, and again, Yolanda Copeland-Morgan, who has been our ambassador for African American achievement at the shall we say, the university level in the UC system, in particular UCLA, and has enrolled more African American students than anybody I know, and maybe anybody that you know. I want to appreciate Olivia Carter, who just spoke. And I was just smiling the whole time. You can't see me, but I could see you when you were speaking. And it reminds me of, I need to say this to the students who are here and hopefully listening. And Allison talked about warm demanders. Olivia is an example, like all of you who are in this gifted program, of you're not better than other people. You're not better than other students. But you have a higher capacity for learning. You're different. Your ceiling is much higher. You might be a great scientist and mathematician, and you have the capacity to not only be that, but also a great linguist and a writer and a musician and an artist, all at the same time. That's what being gifted means. If you're a savant, you may only have one particular area of brilliance. It may not be as fluid in other areas. But I want the students to know, do not put limits on yourself. And if you say, I want to be, and then you fill in what you want to be, you will try to want to be a lot of things. Can you be all of that simultaneously? Not necessarily, but you can be exposed to it. So don't accept any limitations. You're gifted, and know that you're gifted. You don't have to be snooty about it. You don't have to be elitist about it, but you're to be challenged by it, because your contribution to the world will be expected of a greater expectations for you than others. We'd expect you to lead us into the future. The future is already here, quite frankly. And when you say, we'll one day take it over, you can't take it over until you earn it, because we're still here, you're old folks. The people that demand things and get in your way sometimes, but we do it because we love you. So we're not going anywhere. We'll be here to protect you as long as we can, and then you pass it on to the next generation. So thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for being here on a Saturday, which sometimes is a burden for teenagers. I do understand that. But understand us too. We will demand of you whatever we need to, because we know you're capable. And because you're capable, we won't let you be mediocre. We expect you to be excellent. Don't let that be pressure. Just let that be your destiny. You're so capable that why would you waste it? So thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this program. And thank you for inviting me to speak to you this morning. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. McKenna and Mr. Schmirlson. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, and I will be brief because we want to get to those workshops, but I just want to say real quickly, especially to those seniors out there, make sure you apply for your financial aid by March the 2nd deadline. And if you would like to attend another session like this on Monday, February 8th, I'm going to co-host a college financial aid webinar with Assemblyman Jesse Gabriel. And we will do it by Zoom from 5:30 to 7:30. And we'll put that information in the chat box. So thank you for letting me speak. And please stay healthy and please stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Schmirlson. Appreciate that plug. And Mr. Nick Melvoin, please take it away.
I can be Dr. Nick Melvoin today. That's fine. I'll take
You're
it.
doctor in my book.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you to focus on the future. And shout out to Olivia from Uni and Board District 4. You're inspiring and hope to meet you in person and watch your success at University High School. You know, while we can't predict the future, I think that's a lesson we learned in 2020. We do know that the world is changing, and our goal as educators is to ensure that our school system innovates and adapts to meet the needs of a changing world, to set you, if you're a parent, or you, or if you're a kid, I guess, or your kids, if you're a parent, to set them up for success. You know, almost 2/3 of elementary school kids will end up in careers that don't yet exist. I find that so unbelievable. 2/3 of our elementary students will end up in careers that don't yet exist. And that will require a spirit of discovery that I see in our classrooms, even virtually. And I'm reminded, you know, of the saying that the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. We transitioned to better solutions. And I think if this pandemic has taught us anything, it's that the status quo wasn't working, and finding a new way forward means creating the future we want to see, as Amanda Gorman reminded us. And so as we begin Black History Month, I am excited to also celebrate Black joy and achievement in our schools, but also acknowledge Black struggles, including the disproportionate toll this crisis is taking on communities of color and the historic inequities we see in our school districts. And I know this board and this district is committed to righting those wrongs. So I will leave you with a line. I know we heard from Amanda Gorman, but one of my other favorite poems of hers is called The Miracle of Mourning. She writes, "While we might feel small, separate, and all alone, our people have never been more tightly tethered. The question's not whether we will weather the unknown, but how we will weather the unknown together." So thank you for letting me say a few words. Thanks for joining us on a Saturday morning, and look forward to learning alongside all of you today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mulboy. We appreciate you being here and for your support. All right, Ms. Goldberg, take it away.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, let me just thank all of you, parents and students and family members who got up on a Saturday morning after working in school all week, or working at your job if you're a parent and at school with your kids all week, to come to this. These events are very important. They're important because they help us help support young people who are gifted and talented, but need that extra support to be able to achieve the levels to which they really are able to go. We know very much that we have not done well with our history. We have not told the history of African Americans and other Black Americans from other countries well or accurately, but that is something we need to be working on. And I know your advocacy as students and parents for a true reckoning of American history, of racism and systemic racism, is a critical part of changing the future. And we know that some of you will grow up to be historians to write those books, to help us make sure that we don't continue with a mythology about American history. Our history is important and valuable, and just because we've made enormous racist mistakes does not mean we should shy away from telling the truth to our students. Because the truth, I do actually believe, makes us free. So I want to just thank all of you for pursuing all of the various wonderful studies and additional things you're going to take on. I want to especially thank your parents and your guardians and your neighbors and your friends who are here this morning, because they care so much about you. They want to join these seminars. And I want to thank everybody in LA Unified who has helped make these programs possible, who make sure that they are up to date and that they provide the kind of stimulation academically and socially and emotionally to the students who we are honoring today. Thank you very much for inviting me to make these comments.
We greatly appreciate your support. Now we're going to have, thank you, Ms. Goldberg, we're going to have Tanya Franklin in Board District 7. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. And yes, all of the gratitude and celebration and focus on the future, I reiterate from everyone who came before me. One deep connection I had was to Mr. Abrams about being one of few gifted students of color in LA Unified, and how you are trained and supported to feel like you're smart and you're brilliant because you are. But then I was the only kid from my high school that went to an Ivy League school where everyone there was also brilliant and trained to believe in their smarts. And that's where things really got hard. And so while you're in K-12 and LA Unified, I really want to encourage you to not just listen to everyone who tells you you're smart and you can do things, but challenge yourself to do the hard stuff Because when you go to the best colleges, and you will go to the best colleges like UCLA, go Bruins, you will find other people who believe in their talents, and it might cause you to question your own strengths. I want to encourage you not to question them, but to push through, to identify them, to elevate them, and to use them for good for others. You know, there's a saying of lifting others as you climb. And I think particularly as people of color in LA Unified, and for Black students in LA Unified in particular, I want to encourage you to lift others as you climb, because we have such a special responsibility to make this world better, and how lovely that your talents will be cultivated. They will be. And I really want to encourage you to use your strengths for service. So thanks for being here today and for cultivating your strengths and talents. And I cannot wait to see how you help change the world, LA Unified Black Scholars.
Thank you so, so much, Ms. Franklin. Appreciate you being here. And to all of our board members, our final board member today who's going to speak is our board president, Ms. Kelly Gonez.
Hello, students and families. I'm your proud LA Unified Board President, Kelly Gonez. Thank you, families, for your commitment to your students' education and for being here with us today on a Saturday morning. In the year 2020, we witnessed an incredible uprising for racial justice that took hold across our nation and across the world. Public education is a powerful tool, and it remains essential to continuing the fight for transformative change and ending systemic racism. We need the voices of our youth now more than ever. We are counting on them to help us lead, heal, and build a strong democracy that is reflective of their stories and experiences. And that all starts with their education. Today is a testament of our district's commitment and urgency to uplift and meet the promise of our Black students. I urge you today to take advantage of the resources that are available to learn, explore, and ask questions. Families, you play a critical role in helping your students to learn about the opportunities available to them, and most importantly, finding the right programs to help them reach their college and career goals. I wish our students all the best on their journey to college, and I hope you all have a wonderful meeting. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you to all of our board members and families and students out there. I know that was a little bit long, but we really wanted to show our support. Our board is completely behind you. And so we have an amazing Board of Education, a team of leaders leading this district that really, really cares about equity, cares about your opportunities. And so we're glad. Thank you again for all being here today to support us. Very, very briefly, I know we have superintendents in the House, Mr. Romero in Local District South. I know wanted to say a few words. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, and welcome, parents. And it's so good to be back with you again for this great mid-year event. Dr. Woods, I was thinking about warm demanders, and I think you would agree, at Perry Junior High back in the day when we were in the same class,
yes.
Our AP, Mr. Lee. Caring, but tough as nails and extremely demanding. Parents, thank you so much for being here this afternoon. I'm the Local District South Superintendent. I just wanted to let you know that in Local District South, and for me, we are being unapologetic and unabashed about our specific support for African American students. We are currently developing our validated plan with specific action steps to accelerate student outcomes for African American students, including accelerating the number of our students that are identified gifted and talented. We're putting our money where our mouth is. For next year, starting July 1st, we'll have an equity director in place that will oversee the implementation and support us with the validated plan. Students, I just want to share, and I know this comes from UCLA, they're looking for great students, not just good students, great students. So all of you in the audience today, if you have Bs, I'm telling you, if you have a B, you can get an A. So double down, really work your tail off, and we know that you have great opportunities to go into our local great universities, USC and UCLA. Parents, thank you so much for your support in being here, and thank you, Allison. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Romero. Again, appreciate you being here. I also want to acknowledge Dr. Dana Brown, our local district superintendent in West. Thank you for being here this morning as well. And the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Let me start off by saying go Bruins. I liked it so much, I went back twice. And so with that, I am the proud Local District West Superintendent. And I just want to start off with, this forum today shows so much about change. And I give you an example. We used to ask our parents most of us, what words meant. And they would go say, look it up in the dictionary. And we'd pull out a big dusty dictionary. Now when my kids ask me what a word means, I tell them, go Google it, go ask Siri. And they're just off and running, right? And they find out more things. And so we've seen in this pandemic, 2020, many jobs were created on the fly. So how ready will our children be ready to quickly pivot and adapt as they've had to do during this pandemic? TikTok stories have been created. Jobs have been created through TikTok within the last year. Instagram bloggers and vloggers, entrepreneurs, civil rights advocates. Our kids are now civil rights advocates. We've seen gamers. Pear Deck. Nobody would have thought of Pear Deck back in 10 years last year, right? Nearpod, Zoom features. My son called me the other day and said, Mom, invest in Dogecoin. So kids are learning about cryptocurrency and penny stocks, things that we weren't even thinking of back in the day. So today's message is not just about preparing for a world that doesn't exist yet, but the question now becomes, how do we prepare our students? How do we stop preparing them for a world that no longer exists? Right? That's the question. Are we preparing them for a world that no longer exists? 12 years ago, we had jobs such as meter readers, switchboard operators, VCR repairmen. We don't have that anymore. So we got to stop preparing our kids for jobs that are no longer there. We need to teach them how to adopt a new mindset. Teach them how it's not just about majoring in engineering or medicine or science, but they need to be able to be an engineer who can read data, who knows the economy, who can problem solve, build relationships. That is what employers are looking for now and even in 2030. So I want to say this to all of you who are listening. Next time your kid asks you to help them build their YouTube channel, let them. If they want to use the tools in the garage, let them. If they want to watch you fix the sink or fix the car, let them. If they want to cook dinner using a recipe they saw on TikTok, let them. It's okay. It's okay to get messy and do all of those things because we have to prepare them and show them that a new world is coming. It's their world. We have to embrace it. Thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Let them, right, Dr. Brown?
Let them.
Love it, love it. Thank you so much. And we have one final welcomer this morning, and then we're going to get into the introduction of the keynote, Mr. Andres Chait, our superintendent at Local District Northeast. Thank you.
Good morning, students and families. My name is Andres Chait, and I am the proud superintendent of Local District Northeast, comprised of 122 schools in the Northeast San Fernando Valley, where our core belief is that the school is the heart of the community. I would like to begin by thanking Dr. Woods and the entire Access, Equity, and Acceleration Office for their invitation to bring greetings at today's Gifted Network for African American Students and Families meeting with a theme of the new way forward, learning and preparing for a world that doesn't exist yet. Even more importantly, I would like to thank all of our students and families that have made the time and commitment to be with us today. As we all continue to navigate the world of remote learning during this pandemic, it is ever more crucial that we all work together to support the needs of all of our students, including, of course, our gifted learners. Please know that here in Local District Northeast, we remain committed to giving our students every opportunity to thrive and learn in environments that nurture, respect, and reflect their experiences and gifts. In closing, I thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you and look forward to a rich day of learning and growth.
To ensure that we have student voice on our board. And I'm always learning from Ms. Kamari Brown, and she's an incredible leader, and she's a student here in LA Unified. So one of your peers and mentors. So thank you so much, Ms. Brown, for being here and introducing our keynote today.
Good morning, Black students, their families, and guests who are attending this meeting today. My name is Kamari Brown, and I'm a senior at Crenshaw High School, as well as LAUSD student board member. First and foremost, it is an honor to be here this morning to bring greetings on behalf of the board. Events that have occurred over the several months have caused us all to take a step back and pause for a brief minute to reflect on the future, the past, and the present. It has caused all of us to understand that it is a time for us to take action so that we have a safe, peaceful, productive world for all of us that we live in today. The theme for today reflects what we as a nation, society, and as a family know, and that is the new way forward. It is learning and preparing for a world that doesn't exist yet. Just to think about that, we all must prepare for this new world, and it is going to take some thinking and time to design a plan so that Black youth can do and achieve. I have been a Black student in LA Unified, and I can tell you firsthand about the dire need to address obstacles and issues that inhibit progress, and they are inequity and injustice. In order to forge this new world, these have to be addressed now in order to change the educational outcomes for Black students in the future. Today is a good start. We are gathering together, learning together, and celebrating together. We must have more times like these when Black minds gather together to promote success. And we must take lessons from our history and from our ancestors who gave their lives, gave up much to try to create a better world for us. As we move forward, I hope we can push the boundaries beyond what our ancestors did and finally a more just and equitable existence. I'm excited to work alongside you all as we address the necessary steps we must take in order to support our Black students. And thank you. And next I'll be passing it over to our keynote speaker, Kenneth Shelton. A little bit about Ken. He currently holds an MA in education with a specialization in educational technology, as well as new media design and production. He has worked as an educator for over 20 years and spent most of his classroom experience teaching technology at a middle school level. As part of his active involvement within the educational technology community, Ken is an Apple Distinguished Educator, a Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert, and a Google Certified Innovator. And with that being said, welcome Mr. Kenneth Shelton. Thank you.
Thank you. There we go. I was actually trying to find it. I don't know if you all have seen, there's a popular video for the living the Zoom life, and it's called doing the coconut stretch, where you spell a C and then an O. And I was trying to find out to put that in the chat, but anyway, I couldn't find it that quick. So I want to thank you all for being here. And it's interesting, before I share the slides, I want to share a couple of things. One is go Bruins. I too I went to UCLA, class of '93. And it's interesting that as I listen to what you all have shared leading up to this point, because I come from a family of educators, and my father was the chief business officer for the LA County Office of Ed for a long time. And as I'm listening to what you all are sharing, it reminds me of a lot of the lessons that I learned from my father, as well as from many of my teachers growing up. And it truly reminds me of two things, and that is that it really does truly take a village. And also one of my favorite proverbs, which is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And how if you think of the totality of everyone who is here on this call, all the parents, all the families, all the students, all the educators, it really truly does take a community. And the important thing I want to mention around that is I grew up here in Los Angeles, and I grew up, my formative years were in the 80s. And I know that if you think about all of the different challenges that existed, particularly for young Black males growing up here in Los Angeles, not only do we have a number of obstacles, I remember after I graduated from high school, I want to say it was probably my sophomore year at UCLA, the LA Times had released a report that was a research report over a number of years with for Los Angeles County, that those within my age demographic, 1 in 3 were going to end up dead or incarcerated by the time we turned 18. And so the whole idea around really building what I call communities of excellence and supporting the growth and learning of all students, really it does take an entire community. And again, I have so many stories I could share around that whole thing. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity to not only be here and spend this time with you, but I also want to mention a couple of other things. Drew Henderson put it was 1 in 3 when I grew up. So keep in mind, so I'm gonna age myself a little bit. I graduated from high school in 1988. So obviously you have a number of community-based factors that were involved in and obviously barriers or restrictions to access, restrictions to growth, and restrictions to learning. And so for me, I was fortunate enough that I had a number of folks, including my parents, my grandparents, and a number of community members that they really worked with myself and a large group of us around fulfilling our potential academically. And of course, for me, I was fortunate to be able to not only play sports, obviously in high school, but also in college as well. So I share that because I think it's important for us to know where we came from, where we currently are, and where we're going. And I love the idea of the new way forward. You can't solve new problems with old solutions. And the whole idea around this is that how are we looking at our roles in the community, our roles as far as a community of educators, and how does that play a role or a critical factor in the support of all students and their growth. And so that's why I mentioned the title, which I see as Generation Now, because ultimately along these lines, now it's dynamic. So the now that existed when I graduated is not the same as the now at this particular time. And because I spent a long time in the classroom, LA Unified for the win. That's my whole classroom teaching career is LA Unified. I recognize a number of things that I think is important for us to be mindful of, and many of the previous speakers have mentioned it. And those are the following things, is that we should never have any factors that serve from a societal barrier or an individual or internal barrier serve as a predictor of student success. I could share with you all where when I was growing up, especially, and even in some of the early parts of my educator career, I could predict the success of a student based on their socioeconomic status, their race, their gender identity, in many of those instances. And I think the more that we start to look at what are the barriers to success that we can predict and how do we dismantle those, that allows for all of us as a community to engage in higher degrees of intellectual and human capital, but it also is more inspiring and empowering for students, for student learning. It's knowing that anything that is a predictable barrier is now going to be removed or dismantled in that capacity. And that leads me to the following things, which is I'm going to share with you all essentially a totality of kind of my upbringing and why it's relevant to now. And the whole idea is that whatever we do for our children, for our students, and even for the community must contain these two conditions. It must be both responsive as well as relevant. If we're not responsive to the needs of the individuals as well as the community, then our reactions to or our solutions to those problems do not become relevant. And so then keeping on with that, I want to turn back the clock, and my guess is what I'm going to share right now will resonate with a lot of you during your schooling experience. And they are the following. So first of all, what you're looking at on this slide, that represented the totality of access to information that I had growing up, and especially in high school. If you were doing research, you went and either you went into the library, or if you were fortunate enough to have them, you had the Encyclopedia Britannica in your home. And the whole idea around this was, if I'm doing research, then the only access to information I have is what's contained in these books. And realizing that now for sure that whatever information is in there is highly likely to be standardized and limited, because I'm not determining what is of higher importance or value that goes into that. And adding to that is the whole idea around how do we look at the learning experiences that our kids are provided? How do we look at the learning experiences that we were provided? Does the curriculum highlight the strengths and assets of non-dominant populations? One of the examples along that for us in support of all of our students is to help students realize that all of us have skills, all of us have strengths, and all of us have assets. The key is for us to be able to be supported in recognizing what are our assets and what are our skills, and then how can we utilize those to participate fully in our learning environments. This, what you're looking at right here, for me as a classroom educator, became normalized. The whole idea was, if I don't believe it, then I can't be it. And so recognizing that if the messaging that is consistent around the home, the classroom, and even in general is, you have strengths, you have gifts, you have assets, how might we support you in realizing them and then fulfilling our potential that's aligned with them? And in addition to that is thinking about in terms of the representations that exist in the materials that we consume. And so I thinking back to, for example, my AP American Lit class, the only access I had to the reading materials that were provided back then were what's identified as the classics. And I would ask you all, if you were to do a quick inventory, what are the representations of the classics? And how can I, as a, in this case, when I was a teenager, how can I, as a young Black male, relate in any capacity to those stories? And that leads me to the following is, when we think in terms of the materials that we consume, the readings or the media that we encourage our kids to consume, we want to be mindful of the following things. Does it apply a high degree of responsibility solely on the individual without considering a social context? And then in turn, who are the protagonists? And is it aligned with not anyone who isn't part of the non-dominant population? Is it aligned with you actualizing and fulfilling your own agency, or are you a subset of the story for the protagonist? And part of that aligned with this is the idea that if the constant messaging that I'm getting is that I am incapable of, or I have to rely on the divine intervention of someone else, then what does that do for me as far as my own potential? And the whole thing of me sharing this with all of you here is that this is where we, as a collective group of educators, a collective group of community members, a collective group of Angelinos, can start to look at how might I ensure that the messaging that goes to all the students and that is aligned with what I'm sharing is for actualization of personalized empowerment. It reminds me of a thing I share with educators, is the whole idea around Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So if you're not familiar with it, Abraham Maslow was a psychologist that developed this hierarchy of needs. And basically they go in a ascending order on a pyramid that once you get the base level, you work your way up. And one of the things I share with educators is that Maslow plagiarized and appropriated that hierarchy of needs from the native peoples of what is present day the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Southern Alberta, Canada. And it's the Blackfoot peoples. They had a completely different perspective on actualization. Theirs is shaped like a teepee. The base is self-actualization. The next layer is community actualization. And the top is cultural perpetuity. So the whole idea around that is once we develop self-actualization, the question to ask ourselves, and I used to even challenge my students on, is once you recognize what your strengths and assets are, how might you use those to support the learning of the entire group? Learning should not occur in isolation, and uplifting a community cannot be done by one singular individual. It's all of us as a community in our varying roles that we serve and the messaging that we have behind that. And then even continuing on with respect to the learning environments, the content, and the way that we interact with that, being able to make real life connections. My father used to always share with me when I was in the context of my learning environment, especially in high school, was he would always ask me questions around, okay, so you're learning the following things. How does that apply to your, essentially your real life context? What are some of the challenges that you see in the community, or that you see that by way of your learning, you can apply that particular knowledge set and that skill set to a real life circumstance? My favorite thing around this is once you apply a local and relevant context to your content area, to the learning that occurs, that's when we begin to start to realize what contributions we might be able to make, not only for our shared learning environments, but also the community as a whole. And then finally, I'll share with you all the last condition around that is the teacher materials, and more specifically authors. So again, going back to my high schooling experience, like I said, in my AP American Lit class, I was only had access to the classics. And my father, again, being an educator, among other things, one of the things that he had me do, which I think really helped me realize a lot of my personal potential, was I read Richard Wright, I read W.E.B. Du Bois, and then ultimately the big catalyst for me was the autobiography of Malcolm X. Because you see the whole idea around that, which is a context that I think is important for us to be mindful of, is every student experience should be a mirror, a window, and a sliding glass door. And that concept was developed by Emily Stile, then later by Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop, who's at The Ohio State University, and Dr. Debbie Reese, who's an Indigenous professor, if I remember correctly, is still at Arizona State University, is we can't realize our full potential until we see representations of that. And ideally, it's occurring not only in our learning environments, but we're supporting that actualization in the home. Degrees in the context for us, what are all the representations of Black excellence in the home? How do we look at that as a role model and as a catalyst for our own personalized inspiration that will augment and maybe even accelerate or support what's happening in our learning environment? It wasn't until my dad had me read those books, which was outside of the curriculum at that particular time, that I started to see that, okay, I'm going through what is now called the racial identity process, because once I started to see representations that I could relate to on both an optical level, on a racial level, on a gender identity level, and even on a contextual level, now I have a better understanding of who I am as an individual, who I am as a learner, and how might I utilize that awareness to support the growth and learning of many of my friends that I grew up with, and especially many of my classmates at UCLA. So the question I want to ask for you all, kind of after giving that background, is the following. How many of these jobs existed when you finished school 15 years ago, 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago? And I'll pause for just a moment so you can see the list, because I have another question that I'm going to ask you to share your thoughts in the chat. And LaShawna shared very few. That's right. And if you'll notice, some of these, I'll give it away. Some of these are within the last 5 years. And it reminds me of a saying that I used to always share with my students, and it really is emphasized even now, is the following. Right now, if you think about two components, you think about access to technology, which on a side note, it's still not where it needs to be. Internet should be a utility, which I'm working with some folks with the FCC to help lobby for that. But at any rate, access to technology and globalization, the economies are shifting to two areas. And you're going to see, I have an older infographic to share on one. There's the attention economy and the gig economy. Think about all of the ways we have these different mechanisms that are vying for our attention. That's the attention economy. Think about all the ways in which you have what's called gig jobs, which means you do a job and you finish it. Then you do another job and you finish it. You do another job and you finish it. I remember reading a research article that a lot of folks that run small businesses, what they do is they essentially serve as a conduit to the work. And what they'll do is they'll post some of if there is a skill set that's needed to perform the job and they don't have it, they'll post it as a gig on something like Upwork. And then hire someone else, outsource that part to do that. And so aside from this, the question I want to ask for you all, just to kind of think about it as in the context of it, what jobs or roles exist now that didn't when you finished your schooling? And I want to give you all a minute to think about that and then even share it in the chat. What jobs or roles exist now that didn't when you finished your schooling? And so I'll get... we have 1 minute. Please share your thoughts in the chat, and I'll get some music in the background for 1 minute. Okay, I know that was a fast minute. What's interesting, none of those jobs exactly that I had. Here's the thing. How many of those jobs are either a result of or reliant upon technology as well? So it's really interesting to consider those things. But before I go into the tech piece, I want to share with you all a big part of being able to identify a pathway forward, identify a desire to perform or to do something that may not exist, is being able to see it in representation. So I'm happy to share with you all. So I'll give you a little background behind what you're seeing here. And that is the following. When I finished at UCLA, like myself and all of my teammates, I wanted to play professional football. I didn't make it. Most of us don't make it. And so in between that, I worked in, I mean, we're LA, so I did modeling and I did theater and all kinds of other things for a number of years. In fact, at UCLA, I actually wanted to be a theater major, but theater and playing sports don't mix. But the reason why I share this with you all is because not only did I do modeling, if you'll notice, this was a byproduct of an ad that I did. But the reason why I'm sharing this is not so much about my background and doing modeling. It's look at what this is an ad for, and then ask yourself, not only is it an ad for not only nursing and flight nursing, but the representations in the ad. How many representations did many of us in our early years see of things like a Black male nurse, let alone a flight nurse, or anything along those lines, to where we could say, okay, I see a representation of myself in that position, and that's something that's of interest to me. That's something I might want to pursue. And the whole idea around that is, again, going back to the importance of representation. If we don't see it, we won't necessarily believe it. And if we don't believe it, we won't necessarily be it. And I continue on with the following, and I'm going to put this link in the chat because you hear a lot about robots taking our job with automation, automation, automation. I think it's important for us to be mindful of the following. If there is a robot that's going to replace a job, then we want to prepare our students for a future that they're either building a robot, designing a robot, or coding that robot. That's the whole idea around being prepared of a pathway forward. So I'm going to share a link in the chat to that website because it's kind of crowdsourced, but it's basically literally asked the question, will robots take my job? And I will share with you all a little reveal about the data there. If it is a job that is very heavily task-oriented, repetitive, and manual labor, there's a high probability it will be replaced by a robot. And so the whole idea around that is, okay, if I know that that's where the future lies, then how might I put myself in a position to say, okay, I like coding, for example. So I know what coding does, and I know how it can benefit, how robots might be used in that capacity. That's something I want to pursue. But I always share with families and kids, you don't want to pursue coding, you want to pursue computer science, because that goes to that's a larger scale. Now, the idea around what I'm sharing with you all here is the following. Going back to the gig economy, and more specifically attention economy, what you're looking at is a little bit older. I haven't found the updated one yet, so this is only a couple of years old. What you're looking at is an infographic that roughly represents what happens every 60 seconds on the internet. And I know these numbers are not 100% accurate because this is an infographic from 2019. And the question I want to ask you all is, as you look at this, think about all of the content that's being produced, all of the content that's being shared, all the content that's being consumed. And now here's a big question. How much of that is of a learning value? And there's one thing that's not on this infographic, again, like I said, 2019, that to be honest with you all, I learn quite a bit every day from is TikTok. And so we think in terms of a new way forward, how are these platforms being utilized to make stronger connections to a user base, to an audience, and even sharing things like learning? And so that leads me to this quote that I want to share with you all from Wynton Marsalis, because it's going to line up with the video I'm going to share. And I share this because I think that one of the most important messages and lessons that we could provide to all of our youth is to maintain a degree of cognitive humility, intellectual curiosity, and ultimately equates to being a lifelong learner. There's always something we can learn. There's always ways that we can grow. There's always growth to occur. And the beauty of that graphic you all saw is the mechanisms to do that are infinite. And so I want to share with you all a video, because the question that as I share this video, the question, in fact, I'll ask you some questions afterwards.
Windmills,
flares,
head trucks,
90s,
floats,
air flares, air freezes, hand hops, hair chair, L kick, break. It's what you Okay, so we looked up like on YouTube how to do some moves and
like
stuff.
footwork technique.
Yeah. What we mainly include is like break dancing, freestyle hip hop, and like flipping and tricks.
And we started off with basic moves and we started increasing our skill level. And then we would look like step by step on how to do the move and try to like copy it as best as possible.
It's just like really fun. I feel like when I'm spitting, I just go really fast, and it's fun, and like I have a goal to like try to reach more than what I already did.
So the question I want to ask you all is, when's the last time you went onto your computer or your device and learned something? And more specifically, where did you learn it? Feel free to put that in the chat, please. We have YouTube and Wikipedia so far. YouTube. No TikToks yet, huh? I love it. YouTube, fixing a screen lock. There we go. We finally got a TikTok. Perfect. Yeah, and so the whole reason why, and Pinterest, I forgot about Pinterest as well. The whole reason why I'm sharing that is ultimately two things. One is learning can and should occur in a myriad of spaces, not strictly limited to our academic environments. And then two, how often do we encourage our youth, the kids, to not only share their learning, but do it in a way of which they're theoretically published? I think ultimately around these different platforms, it's not so much that the kids are on them all the time. What I used to always ask even my students was, if you're on it all the time, how are you using it to increase your learning and share what you've learned? How are you using your voice as a way to empower others? How are you using others' voices to empower yourself? The whole idea around that is to be able to make the meaningful connections utilizing the technology. I remember especially in my early days with the tech, teaching tech, everyone's like, oh, the tech is making us more disconnected. We're being more disconnected. And my response was always, not necessarily, depends on how you're using it. And so that leads me to sharing with you all some things that I learned over the course of my classroom career and the research that I've done, and that is what's next. And really what's next is the following, is to recognize that some of the content that we learn, not going to remember it. I don't remember most of what I was taught, for sure, not in elementary school, middle school, some high school. I do remember my experiences, by the way, though, but as far as the actual content goes, what I think is important for us to look at is what are the skills that we are curating, cultivating, and growing as a byproduct of our learning environments. And so I basically aggregated the totality of my research from Fast Company, from LinkedIn, from Upwork, from Forbes, and many of my friends that work in a number of Fortune 500 companies that are high up as even officers in the companies. And they narrowed it down to the following skills. So the first skill is negotiating skills. And if you think about it in your daily life, how often are you negotiating for something? It could be anything from as high level as negotiating or a salary to as lower level or as frequent as bargaining for something that you're going to purchase. And the whole idea around negotiating skills is you develop the awareness, the terminology, and the communication effectiveness to say, here's something I want or I need, and then it gets countered, and then you counter it. It's engaging in the negotiation. The negotiating is a part of that dialogue, and it's being able to do that. The other one is time management. I'll share with you all that of all the lessons I learned at UCLA, time management was probably the most valuable. And in fact, the most important lessons I learned around time management were all of the following. One, don't sign up for class at 8 a.m. unless you have to. And then two, being able to balance, both for me, both academic and athletics required the whole idea that you have to really be in fact, time management and discipline. You have to manage your time, and you have to be disciplined aligned with that. And one of the most important lessons I learned from my dad, because my very first quarter at UCLA, I did not perform that well academically. In fact, I was on probation. Because I signed up for class at 8 a.m. thinking, oh, okay, well, high school started at 7:50, 8 a.m. is no big deal. It's different. And two, one of the lessons I learned from my father that was extremely important was I did the readings before the lectures. And so now I'm not sitting in a lecture, sitting there trying to keep up with the professor of taking notes. I literally said, okay, now that I've done the reading, I'm going to go sit in the middle and the front, and I'm just going to listen. And as I learn things that might fill gaps from the reading, those are the notes that I'm going to take. And it really made it much, much more efficient. I'm going to add another thing here because I know it was brought up by one of the other speakers. I think it's critical for us to develop what I call as an intrapersonal accountability cycle. And that is increasing our acknowledgement and awareness of our habits of mind or our cultural norms, developing action items as a result of that, and having accountability. So I'm going to share with you all one of the most important time management lessons that I learned in college. Going into my, after my sophomore year season, going into what was going to be my junior year, there were a couple of things that I started to realize. One is I have to really think differently about my school experience because, and ultimately this is, again, pathway forward. We can't have the same stream of thought. We really want to start to broaden our scope of understanding. And so one of the things that I did along the lines with time management is I said, okay, I'm going to change it up. So what we did was we were required to do workouts, each day. And for me, I'm like, okay, what can I do to put myself at a competitive advantage with my teammates, but not have it compromise my academic performance? And so one of the things I did, again, awareness and acknowledgement, is I recruited a couple of my teammates and I said, you know what, I'm going to start working out at 6 a.m. And it served three big purposes. One, I'm changing it up. Two, if I'm working out at 6 a.m., it means I'm not staying up late the night before. And then three, by signing up for classes no earlier than 9 a.m., I was much sharper academically or cognitively for my classes. And that totally changed, literally changed everything. And from that point on, I actually was on the athletic honor roll for the rest of my time at UCLA. But the main point around that was what skills were necessary for me to identify time management and then hold myself accountable for that. And by working with my teammates on that, I had my accountability partners where all of us would assign ourselves to a teammate and we'd call them at 5:45 in the morning to make sure they got up so that we would go work out. Another skill is public speaking. And the public speaking does not have to be like me sharing these stories and my thoughts and ideas with you all. Public speaking is literally something as simple as going back to those negotiating skills. Technically, that's public speaking. It's developing a degree of comfort, a degree of confidence, and a degree, again, of personalized empowerment that I have a story, I have a message, and I'm confident in not only my story and my message, but I can deliver it to an audience of one to infinity. Part of that is going through that process. It's supporting our children, it's supporting our students in utilizing their story and utilizing their voice to be able to do that. And then the next one is research skills. Many of you just shared in the chat that you learned something on YouTube, you learned something on Google, you learned some, those are all research skills. How does that tie in with skills of the future or jobs of the future? Well, one is being able to understand how to utilize the right degrees of syntax when you're doing your searches, understanding how algorithms work. There's a thing about algorithms I do want to stress with you all. Algorithms are not this innocent coding process. Algorithms are a mirror of society, i.e. they automate the status quo. And when you understand how that works, when you understand how when I do a search, if I've done the same type of search, it's going to prioritize the results that are aligned with something I might be looking for, which ties in with the confirmation bias. Once you understand that, you can then begin to use the right syntax and the right mechanism to be able to perform research that will give you a broader access to information. But the whole idea around here is we want to develop the research skills necessary to do that. And for those of you that are looking at going into college, you're probably doing research on the right school, the right fit, and the right mechanism to be able to be highly competitive and get accepted to your school. And then, of course, the last one is people and networking skills. And the whole idea around this is how do we engage in the ways in which I can not only effectively communicate thoughts or ideas, but I do it in a way that we have to work together. It's what I used to stress to my students is how might we identify the whole as being greater than the sum of the parts. And so for all of you, I'm going to ask a quick question. You have negotiating skills, time management skills, public speaking skills, research skills, people and network skills. How do all of those intertwine? And here's the key with those. How are those transferable and timeless? If I'm looking for a job, I got to be able to do the research to identify what are the best, what are the qualifications necessary, and what are the jobs that are available. I got to know, ideally I've networked and I know people that will help increase or make that more efficient for me to be able to connect to them. I then want to be able to utilize my time to identify what are the jobs that I want to focus on and not necessarily the other ones. And even in performing a job. Now, if I'm going to get hired, I got to be able to negotiate for my salary. But because I've done my research, I know what is realistic in regards to my salary range. So that's why I always share the whole idea is it's not so much skills over content, it's how do we embed the content within those skills? How do we support our students? How do we support our children in asking those questions? How has your learning and how have you incorporated public speaking in your learning? How have you incorporated negotiating? What lessons are you learning around the management of your time? And all of those are ways that, again, if we're thinking about jobs of the future or jobs that don't exist, every single one of those skills is timeless. It doesn't matter what jobs may exist or what jobs may come up. All of those are going to be components to what I want to do or what you might pursue in the future. And I'm going to share with you all a side note thing on that. One of my favorite things to share is Google has, and I'm going to put this in the chat, is they have this platform called Applied Digital Skills. And it's the one I'm most familiar with, and there may be others. And they did a special one around Black history, culture, and identity. But the whole idea around here is what are the technology skills that I can apply? And here's the key. All of those are going to be aligned with the 5 core skills that I just shared with you. So that's why I put the link in the chat for you all to be able to kind of take a look at that. And I would encourage all the students on here, go take a look at that. And maybe you can, maybe it's something that you can do yourself, or maybe even share with your teachers that they might say, okay, you know what, this is something we can incorporate within the content area and within our curriculum. And that leads me to the next thing that I want to share with you all. I'm curious to know if any of you on the call, are you familiar with the platform Calendly? And you can just put yes in the chat if you are. Okay, there's a bunch of yeses. Okay, yes, Michael, it is Black owned. So it's such a wonderful story. It's Tope Awotona. So the whole idea around Calendly, and this ties in with, again, preparing for the future. So Tope Awotona is originally from Lagos, Nigeria. Family immigrated here and then resettled in Marietta, Georgia. And so the whole idea around what ended up being Calendly is Tope had a love for computer science, and that's what he actually studied in college. But then he ended up working at IBM for a number of years, and then he went to other different companies. And of course, the whole idea for him, again, self-actualization, is that once he realized, okay, this may not be aligned with my purpose. This may not be aligned with my why. This isn't necessarily as fulfilling as I want. I want to do something else. And this goes into the whole idea around entrepreneurship. And that's where I go back to the globalization, attention, and gig economy. I think one of the most empowering things we can do is not encourage necessarily our kids to go and figure out who do you want to work for. It's more along the lines of how might you be empowered to work for yourself? What problems do you want to solve? How might you be the solution to it because you're looking at it from a new perspective? So the whole idea around this was once he had reached a point in his career where he decided, I'm going to go into startups and I'm going to try to do something. I know one of the first entry points that he did a startup was analyzing, Plenty of Fish, because that was an app that was like kind of like a dating app, if you will. But he ultimately had the self-awareness and self-actualization that and then the subsequent things weren't necessarily fulfilling. And so the catalyst for Calendly was he would do searches, and he was trying to find a way to be able to do scheduling, because he was caught up in the which many of us have done, it is that email exchange back and forth of, okay, how about this time? No, that won't work. Well, how about this time? No, that won't work. How about this time? No, that won't work. And ultimately, that's when the light bulb went off for him was, oh, here's the problem. This is something that is contextualized for me. I have the computer skills. I have the startup experience. I know how to make the connections with the right people. I know how to negotiate it. I've done my research to see if there's other platforms that exist around this. And ultimately it led to Calendly. And I know it's used by a lot of folks. And in fact, I use it. And again, what were all the skills that were necessary that led to the point of not only the self-actualization, but the execution and the connection with the right people to be able to create this platform that literally solved a problem that he had to navigate, and that quite a few other of us did. And I want to share this quote with you, because and I'll put a link to his story in the chat in a moment, but I want to be quiet because I want you all to be able to take a moment to see this. So hopefully you all caught in there that self-actualization. Be well informed enough, research, to have strong opinions about the solution, awareness, and then of course, only then you're ready to start a company. I learned that the hard way, the self-actualization part. And so I'm going to put it in the chat because it's such a cool story. And I think it's one of many that can serve as an inspiration for students as well, around the fact that you might identify a problem that exists that may not even exist right now. And because we can't predict the jobs of the future, it might even be something around where you do certain jobs, you develop a body of work, you develop an experience, and then you say, oh, I know a problem, and I know the pathway towards a solution, going back to those skills. I love to share with kids the idea that I would love for you to be empowered to the point where some of the problems you solve or the contributions you make are to your own community. You don't have to leave your community to realize your full potential. There's a lot of power in going and getting an education and going back to your community and giving back to the community in that capacity, especially when it comes to intellectual capacity. And the whole idea around that is how might we look at those skills, the economies of scale, globalization, and open more doors for more opportunities for our students, for your children. How might we do that? And then continuing on, that ultimately leads to the new way forward. And I will share with you all what is necessary for sustainability on the new way forward. It's empowerment. And if you all notice, I've shared with you all stories that are aligned with social empowerment, educational empowerment, that can lead to economic empowerment. There's even political empowerment. And then of course the psychological empowerment, and they're all intertwined. The key is, what are the conditions that we are supporting our children and our students in? How do those lead to self-actualization, which is directly correlated to the empowerment? And then how do we use that for community actualization, which then in turn serves as cultural perpetuity? And so I'm going to share a quote with you all from one of my personal heroes that, on a side note, I was never provided an opportunity to read any of her works in high school, but I was in college, and that is the late, great Toni Morrison. And I love this quote: "What's the world for you if you can't make it up the way you want?" And that serves as the empowerment for our students. What's the world if you can't make it up the way you want? How do we support all of those areas of personalized empowerment that require the use of those skills that are timeless and transferable, so that all of our children and all of our students have a pathway towards realizing their full and authentic potential? And then in turn, what contributions will they be able to make to themselves, their families, and the community as a result of that? So I thank you all. I know we have only a few minutes left. Dr. Woods, I happily answer any questions anyone has before we transition to the next thing. But I do want to thank you all for your audience, and I want to thank my LAUSD family for the opportunity to spend this time with all of you. I wish we could have done this in person, but I'll take it for what it is, which is my extreme gratitude for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shelton. Appreciate all your thoughts. And when I think about empowerment, you know, I still have a lot to learn, right? So I'm not finished yet, and neither are our students. So preparing for a world that doesn't exist yet. So really appreciate all that you shared. And as you know, the workshop will focus on the social, the psychological, you know, the empowerment. So really appreciate all that you shared with us. We are going to have Ms. Susanna Farari and Winnie Wong Chang, who will also give us information about the gifted students, the updates for you, the diverse talents of our students. So thank you so much.
Okay, hello, and we are really excited to be here. Thank you for having us. We're going to share some information for parents that we hope you will find useful. So I'm going to start here by saying that Gifted Talented Programs is a part of Advanced Learning Options. Our director is Arzi Galvez. Most of you or all of you should have received our phone call last night. I hope it wasn't too confusing, but what we were saying is that our phone line is now working, which is great because of the pandemic. Of course, we had to find new means to communicate with you all. And we created a GATE email, which many of you have used to email us, gate@lausd.net. But now our main phone line that we've always had, which is 213-241-6500, is now working. We have it connected through Amazon Connect. So please, if you have questions, feel free to give us a call. Our phone line is open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. because we are here to support you. We also have included our link here to our website. Our first flyer we want to share is that we have a webinar coming up that is going to be held on February 25th. That's this month, and it is with Dr. Douglas Fisher. We had a training with him for our teachers. I believe it was in December, which was so well received. We were really excited, and we decided, you know what, we need for him to come and speak to our parents. And so that webinar will be on February 25th. And we are also going to be recording that webinar so that you can view it up until June 30th on our website. And I'm going to share with you where you can get the flyer and where you can view that. So the next event that we want to share is our annual GATE SAS Parent Conference. Unfortunately, last year's conference, because we were just starting the pandemic, we did cancel that conference. We are pleased to welcome back Lisa Van Gemert. She was supposed to be the keynote last year. This year, she will be speaking on perfectionism, a very common trait amongst our gifted learners. We also have Seth Perler, who will be talking about executive functioning skills. And our speaker, the wonderful speaker that we just heard, Mr. Shelton, he talked a lot about that. Executive functioning is talking about, you know, knowing how to create your schedule so that you can be successful. How do you organize yourself, your day, your time, all of those things. And we know, again, looking at our gifted learners, that just because they're gifted doesn't mean that they are able to do those things automatically. In fact, sometimes it means they're going to struggle with it more because their mind is thinking about so many other things. We also are going to be screening the documentary, Screenagers Next Chapter. We showed that last year at our parent meetings in February. It was so well received, we wanted to show it again. So just like the other event we have, this webinar will be recorded. So if you are unable to attend on March 13th, we will have it posted on our website through June 30th for your review. And it's also great because maybe you did see it and then you want to tell other people, hey, you know what, this was really great. You can view it on our website. So now I'm going to take you to our website where we have a lot of resources that you may not be familiar with. So hopefully this works. I'll take you to gifted, talented programs. Here we go. So on our website, first I'd like to show you on our main screen, we post announcements. We are updating constantly this page, and it says click here for important updates during distance learning. So if you ever have questions about, I wonder what they're doing with the auditions and demonstrations for identification in visual and performing arts, well, you'll find that information here. So we post updates. We also have resources here that you can refer to. Now, the link that I want to draw your attention to is the parent page. And on our parent page, we have all provided specific resources for distance learning. And the one that I think is probably the most beneficial for you will be the online workshops. So we did hold our first live webinar it was actually a couple weeks ago, not last week, time's going by, with Dr. Morgan Appel. And so hopefully some of you were able to attend that. We did put out a save the date, and we sent out numerous messages, but if you were unable to attend it, we did record it, and you will find the recording for the elementary version of that webinar here. And then here you will see the secondary version as well. And we also posted his slides. If you attended the elementary, we also had a presenter from Camp Kinda that shared wonderful resources that are free for our elementary learners and wonderful resources for elementary gifted learners. In addition to those webinars, and we do have the flyer here for Dr. Fisher, we have put together some online workshops that you can take, and there are 6 different workshops. We go over basic gifted identification program options. If you are currently thinking about applying to a school for advanced studies, we have information about that. We also have information about our visual and performing arts identification, as well as the Conservatory of Fine Arts. So you would just click on this link, and I'll just show you one just as an example here. So it's an actual presentation that is about 30 to, and I'll stop it there. They're usually about 30 to 45 minutes long. And they do come in Spanish. So if you have families that you'd like to share this with, we also have right here an entire page in Spanish where we have the same resources. So those are just some resources from our website that we wanted to share with you. Now, going back to our main page, I forgot to mention this, that underneath this click for important events, we always try to post our upcoming events. And so if you want to get a copy of the flyer or share a copy of the flyer, for example, of the Dr. Fisher event, you click here on our website, and we do have the flyer here, and it is in English. It takes a second to load, but it is in English and in Spanish. So that's where you can get a copy of the flyer. My colleague, Winnie Wong Chang, is going to post our website link also in the chat.
Yes, it's already in the chat.
It's already in the chat. Thank you,
Yes.
Winnie. And then we also have the flyer for the parent conference here. So we were hoping to, let me go back to my presentation here. Here's our contact information. If we have any time left, and I think we have a few minutes, we are open to taking some questions from the chat, because we know that there's always questions that you have and how you can support your child. But again, we've listed here our website, our email, and our phone number, which is working. We're very excited about that. And then here you see my contact information and Winnie's contact information. So looking in the chat, we're happy to take some questions. I'm going to stop my screen share here and see if there's any questions we can help you with while we're here. If not, if we don't get to all your questions, please feel free to give us a call between 8 and 5 on our phone line, or email us at gate@lausd.net. So let's see if we have some questions here. Questions for us. Winnie, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think you covered everything. I don't see any questions here, but like I said, or like Susanna mentioned, our Gateline phone lines have opened now. So you will get a live person that will be able to assist you, and as well as email us at thegate@lausd.net. Any of your questions.
Looking at the chat. It's looking good. Great. Well, I think then we're finished. Thank you so much. for having us, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for that information, gift information. We have some dates, but before we do that, I don't know if Mr. Shelton, are there any questions that you may have for Mr. Shelton before he goes on to the workshops? Or is there any questions in the chat?
Dr. Woods, there was a question for Mr. Shelton. The question was, how can parents begin synthesizing all of the 5 skills in the home in order to groom children to develop the skills before college?
And yeah, so that's a great question. I would say a couple of things. One is, now that you have the awareness, is to be intentional in supporting your children in the home by specifically asking questions. So I'll give you all an example. What my father would do, especially I would say probably starting off in my sophomore year in high school, which I don't think it's ever too early, is he would literally ask myself, and then he would ask my younger brother, how did you advocate for yourself today? And the whole idea around that is, again, it's being able to, that's public speaking, and then in some cases it's negotiating. And I will share with you all that part of that advocacy, which I think I'm better because of it, did, like real talk, it did involve me getting in good trouble in high school a lot. So I'm going to use the famous words of the late John Lewis. And it really ties in with a number of things. So one, as I shared with you all, was the type of texts that I was forced to read in my American Lit class, to where when he'd ask the question, how do you advocate for yourself today? For example, my response would be that I asked the teacher if we could read more Black authors, and not only in February. And then there was another instance, for example, and I'm just sharing some specifics, but the main thing is to engage intentionally in that dialogue in the home. And ideally, it's a situation where you engage in a dialogue at home and it augments and supports what's happening in the learning environments. Sadly for me, a lot of my advocacy was going against many of the things that I was exposed to. Like, I'll never forget, my AP US history teacher insisted on showing in the classroom Birth of a Nation. Now, I already knew about that. And so, of course, for me, it was, I shouldn't have to be in here to watch this movie. Now, I'll give you all a little context. In my high school, I was the only Black male student in all of my AP and honors level classes for all 4 years of high school, despite my high school being about 25% Black. And so, of course, the whole idea around that was being able to effectively communicate that not only is that not acceptable, but I shouldn't have to sit here and endure it. And so the initial negotiation was talking to the teacher of, I know you want to show this movie. Do you understand fully what the content is? And do you understand that once you turn it on and push play and my classmates watch it, all of them are going to turn and look at me as if I'm going to be the voice of my entire racial identity. And again, getting in good trouble. The minute he pushed play, I got up and walked out of the class and went straight to the principal. I had a great relationship with the principal in high school. But my main point in even just sharing that story with you all is more around being intentional of asking questions. For example, how did you advocate for yourself? How did you utilize your time? What ways did you connect with your classmates that made your learning opportunities better than they were if you hadn't done that? The whole idea around that, and really, I think, which I'm going to do it in the workshop with the students, is going through the racial identity continuum of not realizing who I am as a person, developing an awareness around that, developing a more acute awareness around it based on representation, and then going back to that empowerment, which is why the minute I got to UCLA as a freshman, I was like, okay, I know how to advocate for myself. I'm not good. I wasn't good at first, but I know how to manage my time. I know how to connect with people. In this case, I would say the most valuable connections that I made early at UCLA outside of playing sports were with the professors, because I developed a relationship with professors in my freshman and sophomore year that I think, if I remember correctly, there's a course number called a 199, which is an independent study. And if I remember correctly, at UCLA, you can only do 4. I did all 4, and those were with professors that I connected with. So again, it's It's being intentional in asking the right questions. It's being intentional in identifying that connection between here's a skill, here's your experience, how does it apply? And then the more you normalize that, the more your children will begin to realize, okay, now I understand in context what it means with time management. Now I understand in context why I need to be able to do research. Now I understand in context public speaking, which again, self-advocacy is a type of public speaking. So hopefully that answers the question. Again, for time's sake, I could share lots and lots and lots of stories. In fact, I'll share one added thing.
Yes.
So I'm going to reveal something. When I was in the classroom, I actually had the students negotiate for their grades. And here's the thing. Many of my students started to realize no matter how much we negotiate, I, as a teacher, I'm going to advocate for you anyway. But the whole idea was around the phrase is metacognition. I wanted all of the students to be empowered to recognize, here's where I am. We do a series of projects, or we do a project. Here's where I am as a result of that. What skills and what learning was necessary for me to get to this high expectation level? What resources and support did I either get from the teacher or not ask from the teacher? That the next time I will ask for that. And then now, what does that look like with a letter grade equivalent? And so, but that, again, that was for me in the classroom. But what I recognized was it's important, especially all of our students that come from marginalized and oppressed backgrounds, is part of that self-actualization that I think is critical, that you all saw in the empowerment, is literally an understanding of self and an ability to effectively articulate for self-advocacy.
Thank you. There's a comment about there's schools that Black students are not assigned to honors classes or the AP classes, and there are not enough accelerated classes. So what would you tell parents of how they can advocate for students being enrolled in those rigorous classes?
That happened to me. My going from 8th grade to my freshman year, again, I will stress, a byproduct of coming from a family of educators. As far as I remember, I am either the fourth generation to go to college. So, and I'm 50 years old. So think about that. But with that being said, my dad literally told me, when you sign up for your classes, I only want you signing up for AP and honors level classes. You will not sign up for any of the other classes. And so part of that was, that's what I did. And my high school counselor, I'll never forget this, by the way. You want to talk about trauma-inducing environments. I remember she called me into the counseling office the second week of my freshman year in high school and basically said that as she had performed an audit of all the classes that students were taking, that she noticed that I had taken only AP and honors level classes, and she proceeded to tell me, those aren't for you. Now, of course, for me, it was like, okay, do you listen to the counselor or do you listen to your dad? And you all can probably guess who always is going to win in that dynamic. But a big part of that was, however you sign up for classes, is to be intentional in signing up for them. And if they get assigned, it's to go and advocate to say, no, my child is going to take these classes, and don't accept no. I do want to stress that a big part of that responsibility, actually, let me rephrase that. A big part of that dynamic is all of us collectively saying, if we truly have high expectations, then those should be identifiable based on our actions. And in some cases, you're operating from two things. There's the historical barriers, like from my high school, where Black students didn't take those classes, and now I disrupted that. And there was one of my other classmates, a Black female, that did as well. Or there's the, what I call, it's a byproduct of a stereotype. There is the internalized oppression that we developed, that I don't see myself in those classes, so therefore those probably aren't for me, and then we don't take them. So there's two parts to that. And I think it is important for all of us to recognize that our kids deserve a well-grounded and rigorous educational experience. And I'll tell you all, I struggled in some of my honors classes, but you know what? I wouldn't be where I am now. In fact, there's a statement that I heard, and it was a result of Amanda Gorman's poem, because some of the challenge she had. You can't have a diamond without pressure. And so ultimately, by me struggling to some degree, it helped me develop, okay, what are the mechanisms to that I can utilize to help my learning not only perform at the high expectation level, but be also aligned with the expectations of myself and then of my parents. And I think it ultimately is something I always say to educators: if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. And for our kids, we really want to be in a position to say, this is going to challenge you, and I'm going to support you in this process. But ultimately, you still have to go through the process. So I would encourage all of you to really advocate for your children to take the classes. I will say an additional thing to add to that I actually told all of the families. So one of the things I'll reveal to all of you, I was actually an application reader for UCLA for 7 years as well. So the catalyst for that was back in 2002, if I remember correctly, where there were only 200 incoming African-American freshmen, and that included the recruited athletes. And so I had reached out to a number of other athletes that basically had direct connections with the chancellor. And I said, I don't want to be one of those that just sits on the sidelines and complains. I want to do something about it. And ultimately, I got connected with the director of admissions and relations at the university, and I became an application reader. And there are a lot of things I learned about that process as well. And one of them I will share with all of you is that here in California, unlike a lot of other states, it is in the ed code that if you're under 18, you can take a community college class for free. So I don't know if you all know that. Mm-hmm. So now, in addition to advocating for your child to take AP and honors level classes, there's always, first of all, because of remote, if you have the technology, there's always the opportunity to take a college level class for free, which means you get a college class on your transcripts, you get college credit, and those units are going to be 100% transferable. That's a whole nother thing that I can do to share with you all, but I'm looking at the clock. So hopefully that answers questions. And if there's any other, I'm here. I'm here for you all.
Thank you for sharing that information. As many of you may know, that the UCLA and LA Unified, we have a collaborative of principals and counselors, and they're at the schools with a large number of African American students, and we provide those resources for students, but also the information regarding the FAFSA training, social information that we want to make sure our students feel like they belong on campus. So thank you for that information and pulling that in as far as the UCLA, because we heard a while back that students may receive those great grades, right? They have all A's, but they're not taking the right courses. So we want to make sure that when you parents, when you are your child is wants classes, are they competitive? Are they rigorous? So they can be academically competitive for a college or university of their choice. So thank you for sharing that.
I want to add to Dr. Rainey that I think as parents and students, we need to advocate for ourselves, right? And it's not always enough to just accept what's on your on your schedule. So if you look at your schedule and you don't see any AP classes on there, make an appointment, push on the system, call me, I mean, we really need to and encourage our friends to do the same. I think we've all had folks in our lives that have pushed us to do something beyond what we thought we were capable of doing, and just do it for yourself. And, we have to continue to advocate for that and to create the balance in the system where we have equal opportunity, because it's not always the case where every school offers the same courses. And we're moving in that direction, right? To try to make sure that all of our schools, where we're looking at data, we're working with our schools to do that. But we still need your help in getting to that point. So please don't be afraid to advocate.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Ms. Towery. I know we have some announcements. I want to make sure you receive that before you go to workshops. And it is about the Academy. Olivia Carter spoke very well regarding programs, but also the other activities that we should participate in. So we will have an Academy orientation on the 16th from 6 to 7. And those students, and it is not too late. So if you still want to enroll in those courses, please enroll. And the academy begins on February 27th from 9 to 12:15. And it is creative writing, math with technology, and creative writing. So those are the courses that that are taught in an enrichment. So it's not grades, but it is an enrichment program. And then our next meeting, you have a teaser as far as the workshop programs for students, and it will be May 15th from 9 to 12, and we'll give you more information about that.
Well, greetings. My name is Jessica Thomas, and I am a Standard English Learner Specialist with the Academic English Mastery Program. We would like to invite kindergarten through 12th grade students in LA Unified to participate in our annual African American History Month essay and multimedia contest. The theme this year honors African American leaders in the field of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The contest began January 25th and ends March 1st. Please visit the AEA and AMP websites to gain more information on the contest guidelines. And each of our winners will receive prizes and be honored at the Council of Black Administrators Black Child Conference this spring. So we encourage you all to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. And I will share with you, Mr. Schmerlson spoke about the FAFSA California application, and it will be February 8th, Monday from 5:30 to 7:30, and you will see the information on your screen as far as RCP, and I believe we put it in the chat also. And I'm not sure if Dr. Manuel is, she might be in her classroom, in her class already, but there will be the Young Men's Leadership Conference 2021, February 27th. I know you see all these activities happening at one time, but isn't this great that there are so many opportunities and resources that are provided for our students? So really want you to participate in some or not all of these activities. February 27th from 9:30 to 2 p.m. So thank you so much for taking advantage of the opportunity. That's one thing that we must do, is any opportunity that you see, that we must take advantage of those opportunities. So we'll now have Dr. Gillen Waters, who will give you the transition to the workshops.
Hi, the workshops are going to begin. It's a lovely transition into such a wonderful day today. You all did receive the agendas, and I'm going to speed talk a little bit so that we can have a break before transitioning. The second page of your agenda, the page that has the evaluation link, shows you each workshop that's being provided. There will be 2 parent workshops, 2 workshops for students in grades 3 through 5, 3 workshop options for students in grades 6 through 10, and 1 workshop option for the 11th and 12th graders. In your chat, you're receiving a link that takes you to this table, because here is what happens. Between 11 and 11:30, you will have, if you're everyone except the 11th and 12th graders. The 11th and 12th graders, there will only be 1 presentation. But if you're a parent, the table that you're being provided with via chat, it lets you know about our 2 wonderful presentations. You just have to decide which one you're going to select first, because Dr. Dr. Sands will be doing her presentation twice, and so will the wonderful people at the Junior Achievement. So social emotional health and finance, you can have both, just which one do you want to go to first. On that table, you have this help button. If anything happens, you come back to the main session, we're here. Grades 3 through 5, these 2 are going to be repeated 2 times. So are you going to see Young Entrepreneurs website design? If I'm a student grade 3 through 5, am I going to see it first? Or am I going to see Leadership Leads to Scholarships first? They're doing the same thing both times. You use the links to get to them. In grades 6 through 8, we can either see Mr. Shelton, who we saw right now, social justice advocacy, engaging in academic conversation, or finance one-on-one. Mr. Shelton and the finance one-on-one, they will only be presenting one time. That is what the red means. But then the social justice advocacy, she will be presenting twice, and the links are live here. For grades 9 through 11, 3 options as well, either technology with Dr. Reyes, finance one-on-one with someone, with Mr. Rojas from Junior Achievement, or once again, you can have another workshop with our keynote presenter. The red lettering means that they're only happening one time. Dr. Reyes happens twice. And then, like we said, 11th through 12th graders, closing the wealth gap through financial literacy, rather. That happens from 11 to 12. So the table that in your chat, you have a link to this table, and it has, if anything happens, come right back to the webinar and we can get you in the right place. Are there any questions? And before we leave, on your agenda, you do have the evaluation link. After your last workshop, please let us know. We would like to hear from you, feedback on your evaluation.